She told you she loved you on day 4. She was sending you good morning messages before your alarm went off. She told you that she had never felt this way about any man before, that you were different from everyone she had ever met, that she had been waiting for someone exactly like you her entire life. And you, a man who spent the last several years feeling like the world had quietly stopped making space for him, felt something you had genuinely given up believing you would ever feel again. I am Amara, and I need you to stay right here with me before that feeling takes you any further than it already has. Because what I just described to you is not love. It is a script, a specific, carefully practiced, extraordinarily effective psychological script that has been used to separate older Western men from their savings at a rate that would genuinely shock you if you saw the full numbers. I have watched it happen. I have known women who have run this script. I know the words they use, the timing they follow, the specific sequence of events that moves a man from feeling finally chosen to financially emptied inside of 3 months. The mechanics of it are not random. They are precise, and I am not going to let you walk into it without giving you the full picture first. This is going to be uncomfortable in some places. Some of what I say will brush against the feeling you are currently protecting. That is exactly why I need to say it. Stay here, because the information I am about to give you is worth more than any amount of money you have already sent or are thinking about sending. Let me walk you through the beginning of the story, because the beginning is the most important part to understand. It is the part that feels so good that men will actively argue with anyone who tries to interrupt it. You met her, maybe on a dating app. Maybe she sent the first message, which, if you are paying attention, is already a data point worth noting, though it did not register that way at the time. She was beautiful in her profile, a little shy in her first message, careful even. She asked questions about you that felt thoughtful rather than transactional. She remembered details you had mentioned earlier in the conversation. There was a sweetness in the way she communicated that felt different from the casual indifference you had become accustomed to from the Western dating world. And then it accelerated. The messages came more frequently. Voice notes appeared. She wanted to video call because she said she wanted to see your face when you talked. The calls went long, 2 hours, 3 hours, and she stayed present on them, not distracted, not checking her phone, asking real questions and laughing genuinely, and looking at you through the screen with an expression that made you feel like you were the center of something important. She began saying specific things, that she had never met a man who listened the way you listen, that American men must be so different because you seemed so mature, so emotionally real, so unlike the men she had been exposed to in her own life. That she found herself thinking about you at strange and unexpected moments, when she was cooking her dinner, when she was riding to work in the morning, just before she fell asleep. I need you to pause here, inside that feeling, and really hear what I am about to say. This level of intensity, this fast, from a woman you have never been in the same room with, this is not love. This is a manufactured emotional environment designed specifically to exploit the one thing that makes older Western men the perfect target for this particular scam: loneliness. Not loneliness in a shameful or weak sense, the very specific loneliness that accumulates after years of being made invisible, of sleeping in a house that used to have more people in it, of watching a culture dismiss you in ways that were never announced but were absolutely communicated. That loneliness is real, and it is valid, and it creates a very specific kind of hunger for exactly the kind of attention she is delivering, relentlessly, on schedule, with precision. The love bomb works because it gives you everything you have been starving for, all at once, with no friction and no cost. You do not have to earn her attention. You do not have to wonder if she likes you. You do not have to navigate the uncertain middle ground of early attraction. She hands you certainty. She hands you warmth. She hands you the feeling of being finally, completely chosen. And by the time the cost of all that arrives, you are already so emotionally invested that you cannot see it clearly anymore. The first request is always small. This is not an accident. This is architecture. It arrives inside a moment of vulnerability, a late-night call where her voice sounds softer and more uncertain than usual. Something happened with her phone plan and she cannot load data, and she hates to even mention it because she knows how it sounds, but she just could not bear the thought of losing contact with you for even a few days. Could you help with something small? She is embarrassed. She almost did not ask. She just does not want to lose what they have been building. You send it. Of course you send it. It is almost nothing, and you want her to be able to reach you. Saying no to something that small feels like the opposite of who you are. 2 weeks later, her mother has an unexpected medical appointment, and the cost surprised the family. They are not poor, she says quickly. They are just not prepared for the unexpected. She is not asking you to take it on. Just a small contribution, just this once. She will absolutely pay you back when her next salary comes in. She feels terrible about this. She wishes the world worked differently. You send it, because you have it to give, and she seems genuinely distressed, and you care about her in a way that feels real. 3 weeks after that, her employer delayed payroll, and her rent is due tomorrow, and she cannot sleep, and she knows this is too much to bring to you, but she did not know who else to turn to, and she is so sorry. She is so sorry for this. Look at the structure of what is happening. Each request is presented as isolated. Each one has its own story, its own specific emotional texture, its own particular reason why this moment is different from a pattern, and each one arrives after a cycle of increased warmth. She had been especially attentive and affectionate in the days preceding the ask, telling you how much you meant to her, sending photographs, making you feel chosen at maximum volume. Then the moment of need arrives when you are at the absolute peak of your emotional investment. The amount feels manageable relative to the feeling, and saying no seems like it would contradict everything you said when you told her you cared. This is not accidental. The warmth before the ask is deliberate setup. The emotional investment you have built over weeks is the leverage being used. The small initial amounts are specifically designed to establish a pattern of yes before the numbers grow. The escalation is gradual enough that the total climbs significantly before any single request feels alarming. Let me tell you what is actually happening on the other side of that screen, because you deserve to know the complete picture. The women who run the script are not all the same. Some of them are in genuinely difficult circumstances, carrying real financial pressure, real family obligations, real survival anxiety, and they have calculated, correctly, that a lonely and kind-hearted older Western man represents a resource that can be accessed with the right emotional approach. Their circumstances do not make the manipulation acceptable, but they explain why it exists. They are not necessarily sociopathic. In some cases, they are simply desperate people using the tools available to them. The more sophisticated operators are running several conversations at the same time. While she is telling you that you are different from every other man she has ever encountered, she is sending a version of that same message to a man in Germany, and a man in Canada, and a man in Arizona. The sense of specific recognition you feel, the feeling that she has really seen you, really chosen you out of all the possibilities, is the product of practiced skill, not of genuine connection. She has learned with precision what men in their 60s and 70s have been starved of, and she delivers it without hesitation. The family emergency mechanism works specifically because Filipino family culture is genuinely real and genuinely present. The obligations are real. The closeness is real. The expectation that family members support each other through hard times is deeply embedded in who we are, which is exactly why it is such an effective vehicle for financial extraction. You cannot easily argue against a sick mother, or a sibling's tuition, or a father's unexpected hospital bill without seeming either cold or ignorant of the culture. The scammer understands this vulnerability precisely. She uses a genuine cultural value as a container for something that is not genuine at all. The other dimension of this is intimacy itself. Video calls that gradually become more personal, photographs shared as trust building, suggestions, always just possibilities of what physical closeness could look like when you finally meet in person. The physical dimension of the relationship is kept just far enough out of reach to remain powerfully motivating, because she understands that the moment she actually delivers on that dimension in person, the primary leverage disappears. The fantasy, maintained at distance, is more valuable to this operation than the reality would ever be. You are not foolish for falling into this. It is a sophisticated operation being run on a person whose own life experiences have made him specifically vulnerable to it. Understanding how it is constructed is the first and most important form of protection. Here is the protection: real, specific, actionable. Not how to feel about it, what to actually do. The first protection is what I call the 3-month rule, and I need you to hold it without exceptions. Do not send money to a woman you have not met in person under any circumstances in the first 3 months of contact. I do not care how real the connection feels. I do not care how genuine she seems in every other dimension. I do not care how urgent the situation she describes is. 3 months. No money. No exceptions for good reasons, because the good reason is always part of the script. A woman who disappears or turns cold because you did not send money in month 1 was never interested in you. That disappearance is information. Let it arrive. It just saved you everything that would have come after it. The second protection is to watch the ratio of warmth to requests and to notice whether one reliably precedes the other. In a real relationship, affection exists on its own terms. It is not time to soften you up for something. She is warm because she is warm, not because she is preparing the emotional ground for an ask. When you observe that the spikes in her attention and affection consistently arrive just before a need is expressed, that pattern is not coincidence. That is the operating rhythm of the script. Trust your pattern recognition over your emotional response in those moments, because your emotional response is exactly what is being targeted. The third protection is to make meeting in person happen within a reasonable time frame. A woman with real feelings for you will want to be in the same room with you. She will be excited about planning a real visit. If there is always a reason the meeting cannot happen yet, always a conflict, always a new obstacle, always just a little more time needed, that distance is being maintained intentionally. The relationship at screen distance is the relationship she can control. The moment she becomes real and present in your actual life, the dynamic changes in ways that are not useful to her operation. Push for a real meeting. Watch what happens when you do. The fourth protection is to bring someone you trust into the conversation before you send anything of real value. I know that feels uncomfortable. I know you do not want to explain to your son or your old friend that you have been sending money to a woman in the Philippines that you have never physically met. That discomfort is by design. She has helped keep the relationship private because privacy is where this particular arrangement is safest for her. Bring it into the light. Show someone else the conversation. Let someone read it with eyes that are not in love with her, eyes that are not hungry for what she is offering. They will see the architecture of it clearly because they are standing outside of it. There is a real woman in this country who is warm because she was raised that way, not because she studied what you needed to hear. She is out there, and she is genuinely different from what I described today. She does not need your money to feel something for you. She is not running a script. She wants to know you the way that costs something real. Time, vulnerability, actual presence in the same room over months and years. She is worth finding, and she is worth protecting, including protecting her from being confused in your mind with the imitation of herself that I just described. Do not let what I told you today make you closed. Let it make you clear. There is a significant difference between those two things. One shuts the door. The other teaches you what to look for when you open it. And opening it, with wisdom, with patience, with the ability to tell the difference between what is real and what is rehearsed, is exactly what you came here to do. That capacity did not disappear. It just needed the right information to work properly. Now you have it. Use it well.